Hi there, Carolyn Peeler, and I'm delighted to be with you in Ellen Hudson's classroom. Today I have a colorful holiday card to share with you. This seems to be the time of year when a lot of people are thinking about spring break or getting away from the winter cold, so this seemed like a perfect time to break out some holiday brights. To get started, we're going to use this wonderful W+9 triangle stamp. And I'm not sure if you can totally see it on the block, but this is not actually one complete background stamp. This is several stamps, and you can arrange them however you would like onto your acrylic stamp block. And I've stamped this onto watercolor paper that's already cut to the size of my card front, so that's going to be 5.5 by 4.25. I've stamped using clear embossing ink by Ranger. If you've never used the Ranger clear embossing ink, it's wonderful, and it actually smells like those little red cinnamon hearts, which is kind of a fun little treat and surprise to have while you're stamping. So I've just stamped using the clear embossing ink and then put white embossing powder on it and heated it with the heat tool. The other thing to notice is that I am stamping with my stamp orientated more to the right, and that is because I'm going to have patterned paper on the left side of the card. So I'm not worried that my background is not going completely all the way over to the left. Now's the fun part. We're going to get started with some colors, and these are Kuretake Gansai Tambi paints. I'm using two different colors, the yellow number 43, and that is a mid yellow, and the red number 35, and that's the carmine red. Now for these specific colors and where you can find them, those are going to be linked under the video in the Ellen Hudson classroom with all the products, so you can find them. I'm also using some of these two actually of the Zig watercolor brushes, and I'm using two so that I don't have to clean my brush in between using the two separate colors. Obviously, if you just have one brush, it's not the end of the world. You'll just want to clean your paintbrush in between changing colors, otherwise you're going to get this orange. Now, one of the interesting things about this red is it can look really pure, bright red, but if you water it down, it will take on more of sort of a hot pink magenta type color. So that's really nice for myself. I don't use as many of the primary colors. I tend to stick more towards pinks as opposed to reds. So this is a really nice red for someone like me who's more drawn to sort of berries and pinks and magentas as opposed to, true orange-based and yellow-based reds. Now here I'm taking a paper towel. I've just squirted it with a little bit of water, and I'm dabbing on the watercolor that's gone over my embossing. You don't necessarily have to do that now. You could do that later in the process once you've started heating, after you've dried everything with the heat gun or let it air dry. But I sort of wanted to see where my contrast levels were at between the white embossing and the watercolor. So by dabbing at it with the paper towel, I'm able to tell where I might want a more concentration of color. So as you can see here, I'm just going in and adding more concentrated color so that I get some really nice bright colors. I start to heat emboss, and then I realize, uh-oh, I forgot an area on the bottom left where the pattern paper is not going to be, so I better add some color there, otherwise I'm going to have this white spot. So yeah, saw that. Once everything's done, you can either let it air dry or dry with a heat gun. For the next step, you're going to take a piece of vellum, cut the same size as your card front, and glue this onto the front. Now you can see that I've only glued it on the left side. As you can see there, I lifted it up. That is because I'm going to use my sewing machine to really adhere it on the whole card front. So I only need to apply the adhesive on the left. Next I put my pattern paper on, and I'm going to use my scissors to cut the excess off. For me, the pattern paper is about 1.25 inches in on the left side of the card. I tend to be a person who does my project this way. If you're someone who likes to cut the exact right size, then you'd want to do that before gluing. Now here's the stamp set we're going to be using today. These are the Kelly Perky Travel Planner stamp set. Now to line these up, what I like to do is take a note card or a piece of paper and then put the stamps down on the straight line and then put my block on top of it. That way I make sure that everything lines up straight. It's especially good when you have several stamps and not just one, and you want to make sure that they're all straight and you don't have weird angles going on. So I lined them up, put them on the block, and now I'm stamping with the Memento Tuxedo Black ink pad. Now this stamp set is really nice because you can use it in the planners, but it also will work in this application for a card front. As you can see, I just held up my card blank there. You can see that I sewed. So I was sewing to stick my vellum on, as I said earlier. So I've taken it away to my sewing machine, I've sewed it. Now I'm coming back and I'm gluing this card front onto a functional card, so a card that's going to completely open up. I also now have my stamped focal point of my card. I've mounted that onto some Bazzill cardstock, and now I'm going to color, add a little touch of color with some Copic markers. So for those, you're going to see the colors listed on the supply list here that's underneath the instructions, the video here. But I've used C3, the cool gray for the ship. On my passport, I've used W3, which is a warm gray, and B01, which is a mint blue. For the title that I'm doing here, I've used RV17. And then on the umbrella, I've used a combination of Y15 and YR23, so that there's just a little pop of color. Now you'll notice here, while everything's laid out, my card front. Now I told you before that I tend to like softer colors, and if you've seen my work, you know that. So adding the vellum over top of those bright watercolors just softens everything up. So I still have a really bright card, but it's just slightly toned down, which for someone like me, I appreciate. Final step here, we're going to go ahead and mount the greeting onto the front of the card. Line that up, stick it down, and then you're done. You have a wonderful card. It's great to send for a bon voyage message to someone special. Thank you so much for joining me today.